Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Inside LSU Baseball. I am your host, Jason Armstrong, and we are going to jump into a little different episode. Not going to get too bogged down in any one thing. Um, we'll briefly recap the South Carolina series. We'll touch on a couple of player um, things happening with players emerging, a couple of guys struggling. Um, Talk about the top 8 seed situation, thoughts on Hoover, and then just look at this team. Kind of how do they do through 10 weeks of SEC play compared to the other Jay Johnson teams since he took over in 2022? Because that's a real even way to assess teams is looking at just conference play. We'll also take a look at some individual seasons that some guys had in the SEC, and look at some position players, compare the pitching staff compared to previous years, and we'll just kind of do a bunch of things. Not too regimented today, but still worth the listen, I think. So I must say. So anyway, let's start with this. You got the win, the series win. You needed to win 2 games against South Carolina to remain in the top 8 in RPI rankings. I know everybody's talking about RPI right now and top 8 seeds, but based on the Boyd's needs report, this wasn't something just I was pulling out of, just from emotions. There's actually a data-driven formula that tells what does LSU need to finish top 8 RPI. And going into the series, it was two wins at South Carolina, and they did that. And we'll kind of circle back to what that means for them. But that's what they needed. The first game, my goodness gracious, I had some clips sent to me and people on YouTube and some people who cover LSU. You would have thought that man, they lost a lot of money or something on LSU losing game 1. They were like offended that LSU lost. I mean, it was unacceptable and this and that. My goodness gracious. I mean, that this team's trying to win games. Sometimes they're gonna lose a game, and it happens. But to each his own. But just looking at the games, let me touch on some pitching performances that stood out. I'm not going to go through every game and what happened. They lost game 1 in the last inning. South Carolina mounted a comeback against LSU's closer. They're I don't know if it's closer, but their best relief pitcher, pretty much their go-to guy, Zach Cowan, and scored a couple runs in the last inning and won the game. Game 2, LSU put it on them pretty good, and game three, I think it was a 7-3 win, but they got to a point where they were in control of that game. But just some pitching performances. Game 1, obviously that was the game they pitched off. Conaware started, and look, Conaware unfortunately is just really struggling with command, and I hate it for him because we could really use a lefty with that's got the fastball with the carry that his has. I mean, he's hard to hit. He's hard to square up, but he just cannot throw strikes at times. And so it's just unfortunate. I wanted to see him do well, but he got a quick hook. Jade Newt came in. Jade Newt threw 4 innings, and I mean, he was on cruise control. That last inning, they got the hit to right past Braswell. And then they kind of strung a couple of things together. They wound up scoring 2 runs off of him, but he goes 4 innings with 2 hits, 2 earned runs, 5 strikeouts, and no walks. So Jade Newt is 100% in that circle of trust, going to be one of your key relievers down the stretch. He just is. And who knows? I think we'll talk about this with Hoover, but Hoover's going to be very important to see who else can emerge maybe as a starter. And because you hate taking guys that are valuable out of the bullpen and sticking them into a starter role. But, we've seen this in the past with Ackenhausen and guys like that, Thatcher Hurd, where you need a spot start. And so you just never know. But that stood out to me. Chase Shores came in and again, through 2 innings, 2 hits, 0 earned runs, 0 walks. I mean, and Chase Shores is becoming, I want to say, say we fast forward to regional play and game one, you've got a 1-run lead in the 7th inning. I'm not so sure that Jay Johnson doesn't go straight to Chase Shores the first out the pin at this point. He has become that good. I mean, his last 3 outings, uh, uh, he's sitting 99. He's got confidence. The misses aren't bad. He's just filling up the strike zone. That is a huge, huge thing for LSU down the stretch. The way that Chase Shores is pitching. But so those were the two guys that, game one, and I talked about Zach Collin. We'll come back to that. Game two, Anderson was himself. I don't know. There's a lot of pessimism out there. People thinking of, Cade Anderson's going to need Tommy John surgery and all of this. I mean, look, the guy threw a bullpen early in the week. I mean, it was a risk. I don't get all of that, scare tactics. But look, he was great. 6 2/3, 4 hits. 3 walks, 9 strikeouts. And I would say the person that stood out to most to me, who came in at the end of that game when it was in hand was Grant Fontenot. Grant Fontenot is a transfer from Texas that early on he had a bad outing and he just, he hit a couple guys and he just, this happens with Jay Johnson. It seems like every year. I mean, if you look back to like Fidel Ulloa, early on, he has a couple of bad. I know he had more chances, but these guys that things don't go well and you don't see him again forever. And Grant Fondo now 3 SEC appearances. He's faced 10 batters, 0 hits, 0 runs, 0 walks. I think he did hit 1 batter. He got 3 strikeouts. But like he's mid to upper 90s with a good breaking ball. So, I mean, I think Hoover's going to be big for him. I think that's a guy that you get out there and see what he can do. Game 3, Ianson, 7 innings. And it wasn't even his best stuff early on. I think he was just too in love with the breaking ball. He wasn't believing in his fastball. And so the first couple innings, sometimes that breaking ball's got a lot of break on it. If it's hard to land and he's not confident in that fastball, it takes him a little while to work it out, but he started getting back to the fastball. He was throwing the slider a lot more and then came back with the slower curveball. Man, that guy with those 3 pitches, good luck. So Ianson was great, 5 strikeouts. He had 3 walks. It wasn't even his sharpest outing, but he still goes 7 innings, 2 earned runs. I love talking about him. Cooper Williams, once again, was sharp. Now, he faced, I think, 4 batters and 1 guy hit a home run. So, but I thought that was a bad pitch. And I think it was a 2-0 pitch maybe. And, but outside of that, he did a good job. I mean, he got the big strikeout after that delay. I think it was a hit batter that they reviewed and he had 2 strikeouts. Love seeing that. Didn't we see? I left out that we did see earlier in the series. Kason Evans back in the bullpen. That was good. He wasn't that sharp, but I think he threw an inning a third, no runs. But I'm not too worried about that. It was good to see him back in that role. And then again, Chase Shores closed out game 3 with he got 2 outs. Did have a walk, got a strikeout. So I feel really good right now about where this bullpen is and where these arms, the guys that we have right now. I think that's at one time, maybe people worried about that. I'm feeling pretty good. Now, offensively, a couple guys who had good weekends. Curriel was 3 for 13, and that's not great, but based on the way, a few weekends in a row have gone, it was really good to see him get out the gate. I think it was game 3 that he had the good game after going maybe hitless the first 2. I might have that wrong, but I know it was I think in 1 game he had all his hits, if I'm correct. But he was 3 for 13. I mean, look, the 2, 3, and 4 hole hitters went crazy. I think the first 2 days against left-handed pitching, Jay went Jones, Dickinson, Fry, and they just went crazy. And then game 3, it was Jones, Dickinson, Brown, and then Fry followed. But Jones was 6 for 13, 5 RBIs, and 3 home runs. Did he ever need that? I mean, I think a lot of people were losing confidence in Jared Jones, and to come out there his last series and hit 3 home runs and 5 RBIs, get 6 total hits was awesome for him. That's what we need, him heating up at the right time. Dickinson, another good weekend, 5 for 12, 4 RBIs, 2 home runs. Ethan Fry, 5 for 15. And look, I think he went hitless, like 0 for 4, 0 for 5 his last game. So he was like 5 for 10 against left-handed pitch in the first 2 games, left-handed starter. So 2 RBIs, a home run. And then Jake Brown. Jake Brown was 5 for 8 with an RBI and a home run. So all those guys had really good games and just gives this offense a lot of depth. It just, you never know who it's going to be, and good to see those big sticks at the front of the lineup stepping up. All right, said I'd talk about it. Zach Cowan struggled again. He comes in and gives up. I mean, LSU's got a lead in the 8th inning. They go to him in game 1, and we lose the game. Gives up, I think, was it a triple or a home run? Then he gives up another triple and then loses on a wild pitch. And I hear people saying things like, well, people know he's throwing a changeup, so they're just sitting the changeup, so the book is out. Listen, that's not what's going on, okay? Zach Cowan is going to be okay. He is still the same pitcher that we saw early in conference. There are many pitchers, many, that have one pitch that is just a lot better than their other pitch. I don't care if it's a fastball, a slider, or a changeup. Just because a pitcher has a very good pitch that's very effective, that doesn't mean now everybody knows it's coming and so it's not effective anymore. Zach Cowan did not struggle because everybody knows he has a changeup. He's struggling because he grooved an 0-2 changeup. He was in too many 3-ball counts. He hit a batter, which is very uncharacteristic of him, and he spiked a slider that, allowed a wild pitch that allowed the winning run to score. So it's not a matter of everybody knows a changeup's coming. Trust me. He's not locating. Man, look, old Zach Cowan, you look at the box score, like not the PDF, the one where it goes through pitch by pitch, and it's like you could look at an inning, and it's not only 3 up, 3 down. It's like 0-2 strikeout, 1-2 ground out, 0-1 pop up. I mean, he was just going right through people. And so I think maybe the command, maybe it's a confidence thing where he's trying to be too cute on every pitch, paint the black. And, I think it's about confidence. And look, you keep the ball down, you pitch in and out, change speeds, you're going to be successful at any level. I don't care what it is. You throw the ball over the middle of the plate against SEC hitters, you're not going to be successful. If you're pitching behind the counts, you're not going to be successful. That's the deal with that. And then I talked about the Chase Shores emergence already, but boy, is that big for this LSU team. And it just took him so long to get going as a starter. But guess what? As a reliever, he's really found something there. So I'm excited about that. So let's briefly talk about the top 8. LSU is going to be a top 8 seed. Now, I understand if you're concerned because you go, well, LSU is projected as the number 7, seed by D1 Baseball, or they're actually the number 8 RPI, so what happens? Can they lose one spot? And now they're going to be a top 8 seed. All right. If you look at the teams that are behind them, like I'll give an example. I think Alabama is right behind LSU. All right. Alabama's got, I think, 16 wins on the year. Their RPI's behind LSU. They lost the head-to-head to LSU. Like, they're not going to jump LSU, okay? I mean, teams with the number 12, like Coastal Carolina is not jumping LSU, all right? Florida State, like all these teams behind LSU are not going into the top 8 and knocking LSU out. LSU will be a top 8. Write it down. It will happen. Don't worry. If it doesn't, I guess we'll have to clip this and everybody can laugh at me. But, all right, thoughts on Hoover, because guess what? This is such a fun time of year. Tuesday morning, we've got ball at 10:30 Eastern time, 9:30 Central. We got games. Can't wait. So my thoughts on Hoover are this. I would love to see. The way it works out is really good because you're going to be able to keep your pitchers on a schedule. A lot of teams don't have that luxury, so they're trying to think like Tennessee. Like, do we throw? I think they're throwing. They're one of the teams is playing Thursday. I want to see it say maybe it's not Tennessee, maybe it's somebody else, but they have to throw their ace on. Do they throw them on Thursday on short rest, or because I think it's like if they win Thursday, they play Saturday. They don't play. So do you save them for Saturday, give more rest? But now guess what? The following weekend, you go into regional play. And then if he threw Saturday, now he's got to throw Friday on short rest. So that's a dilemma a lot of these teams are having to face. We don't. Kate Anderson can throw Friday. If you win that game, Ianson can throw next game. Very simple. Now, I would love to see our starters throw about 60 pitches. That is it. All right. The goal for Hoover is to get your work in, don't get injured, but guys need work. I mean, like I was really hoping to see, and look, I'm not the guy to second guess Jay Johnson. I will not do it. All right. But like Chase Shores came in for that second appearance, game 3, when I felt like it was comfortable. Maybe not. But you've got guys like Maverick Rizzi, and I know he pitched a batter, Jacob Myers, DJ Primo, William Schmidt, Connor Binge. I think these guys have to throw in Hoover. They have to throw. We have to see, one more time, we have to see if they can be used down the stretch. Because you can't get in a jam and go to Connor Binge in an elimination game. Right? Like you can't go to DJ Primo with the game on the line in a winner's bracket game and he hasn't pitched in 2 weeks. We have to see those guys in Hoover. And I just think these guys, they have something to offer. All right. I would love to see William Schmidt. I don't know if he's going to get a start unless you maybe make it to the championship game. But listen, LSU needs to find a third starter. If you win your first 2 games in a regional, you need somebody to start game 3. You split the first 2 games in a super regional, you need a game 3 starter. You get to Omaha, you can't win without a third starter. And you might say, well, Jaden Newt, that's the choice. Well, yeah, he's looked good, and I guess he could, but he's also a very solid piece of this bullpen right now. So is that what you want to do? Maybe you do, but then you're taking away one of your main bullpen arms right now. So I would love to see some of these guys who we haven't seen lately really get in there and Hoover and have some be able to face some batters and see what they've got. So that's my thoughts on Hoover, but mainly don't get hurt. And let's see some guys, Ashton Larson get some at-bats. Maybe some other guys get some playing time. So now, conference is over. LSU just finished at 19-10, right? And if we're just taking a look at how do we measure this regular season compared to some of the other Jay Johnson squads since 2022, I dug into just a couple of generic stats and I'll lay those on you. And just to kind of give you an idea of how successful was this team. So the 19 wins ties the most wins in the Jay Johnson era. Okay. If you remember 2023, LSU went 19-10. There was a rainout and that was at South Carolina. And I'm just being honest. I don't know. I feel maybe LSU wins that third game, but I wouldn't have bet on it. So I don't know that they would have won 20 games that year with if they play all 30 games. But regardless, LSU wins 19 games. That matches one of the best teams of all time, 2023 national championship team. All right. The 42-13 record overall entering the SEC tournament matches the 2023 team's record. So think about that. All the times that we, I say we, like, Twitter and people that cover LSU question things about this team. They have the same exact record entering Hoover that the 2023 team had. You know, the 2023 national championship team went 12-4 starting in Hoover and then in the postseason and finished with like a 54-17 or something. They went, something like that down the stretch. But at this point, same exact record. The 7 conference series wins that this LSU team has is the most in the Jay Johnson era. The most. 7 series they won this year. The 3 series sweeps that they have ties the 2022 team. Not even the 2023 team had 3 sweeps. And then the number 8 RPI right now is right behind the number 7 RPI 2023 team. So at this point right here, entering Hoover, this is they're one spot behind the 2023 team in RPIs. That just kind of tells you this type of season that this team is having collectively. Maybe when we dig in some of the stats, that's where you go, well, yeah, but this team wasn't like that team. But like as a team, when it comes to winning, I don't know how this team does much better than they've done. I mean, I mentioned their number 8 RPI. I mean, the 2024 team entering Hoover, they had a 30 RPI. Now, they got it to 23 after Hoover because they went on a run, but they were 30. The 2022 team that was also that was the 17-13 team, good team. They were at 23 RPI. So very, very strong season for LSU. And really, we're talking about mostly the conference as it relates to other SEC seasons. But I did mention overall record is the same, and then the RPI is based on your entire body of work. So let's look at some team stats and look at how they compare maybe to other Jay Johnson teams. So offensively, this year's 274 batting average is the second best batting average, that one of Jay's teams have had at LSU. The 2023 team had a 280 average, so a little bit behind that. Now, this year's the on-base percentage was only 368. That's the third best of the Jay Johnson teams. Obviously, the 2023 team was the best with a 412. Now, this team had walked the fewest amount of times. They only walked 122 times. You look back at like 2023, they walked 175 times. And even the 2022, 2024, they walked more than this team. And that's evident when you look at guys like Jared Jones. He walked more his freshman year than he did this year. So just didn't draw a lot of bases on balls. This offense didn't. So, slugging percentage, they slugged 422. That's the worst of all of the 4 teams Jay's had. Now, the 53 doubles, that's the second best. They're only one behind. Last year's team hit 54 doubles. So 53 doubles is just, that's a good, they did a good job of hitting doubles this year. And again, we're talking about conference play. Now, 45 home runs is the 4th best of all of Jay's teams. Believe it or not, the 2022 team hit 63 home runs. That's the most of any of Jay's teams since he's been at LSU. So only 45. So there was a drop off in overall power when you would look at the slugging percentage and the home runs hit. So 185 runs, total runs scored in SEC play. That's 6.17 runs per game. That's third. So, you look at some of the things and you go, like, they hit for average, but on base percentage, walks, hitting for power, those things compared to Jay's teams weren't up there like maybe you're used to seeing. Doesn't mean in the scheme of the SEC they weren't good, but just comparing it to other teams over a 10-week conference schedule. Now, the good news is pitching. The pitching, this was the best pitching staff based on a lot of the different metrics, okay? The 4.14 ERA was first by a good bit. The 238 hits allowed lowest amount of hits by any of the 4 pitching staffs. 133 runs allowed in SEC play, fewest amount of runs allowed. Now, the 130 bases on balls is the third best. So, believe it or not, in 2022, that staff with Mikal Hilliard and all those bullpen arms, Paulie G and Raiselman and Riley Cooper, they had the fewest amount of walks. They only walked 108 batters. So this year they walked 130. Now, the 330 strikeouts in conference play is tied for the most with the 2023 team, but the 2023 team did only play 29 games. So if you look at it like that, maybe that team probably, winds up striking out the most batters. But look, this team was right there. All right. And then the batting average, the opposing teams only hit 242 against LSU pitching in conference play. That's the best of any Jay Johnson staff. All right. Defensively, not even close. This is the best defense Jay Johnson's have. A 985 fielding percentage in conference play. That's much better than any team Jay's had. Only 16 errors and 20 double plays turned. That is the second best. In 2022, they turned 21 double plays. What might surprise you, though, I mentioned the let me go back to something. The pitching staff with the 4.14 ERA in conference play, you might be surprised to hear that in 2023, the team ERA for LSU's national championship winning team was 6.17. Last year, 5.64. So, this team has done a really good job pitching. Defensively, not even close. You go back to 2022, and that team fielded 967 in conference. The national championship team only fielded 970. Last year was really a big improvement, 978. But then again, this year, you're all the way up to, 984, 985. That's incredible. So really, best job of pitching overall of any of Jay Johnson's teams. Best job of defense. So this has been a really good year, really good job of winning games. And look, postseason, pitching and defense, I'm sorry, but you give me that any day. These SEC hitters that LSU has, they're going to figure it out. Now, look, you want guys to hit home runs and all that. You don't want to have a team that can't hit. But, you're not going to find many teams that play that good a defense and pitch that well. And that's a big advantage. So, and look, this team, top 10 nationally, and this is overall in ERA. They got a 3.78 overall ERA. That's the 8th best in the nation. Fielding percentage, overall fielding percentage is top 10. They're actually number 10 with a 981. The pitching staff, hits per 9 innings allowed. They're 8th in the nation at 7.4 hits allowed per 9 innings. And then strikeouts per 9 innings, 11.7. That's 4th in the nation. So just as a team, really good job by these guys this year. So let's take a look at a couple of individual things. I mentioned this last week, but you had a couple of guys that you were hoping would maintain hitting 300 in conference play, a couple of guys that were close to doing it. Stanfield finished the year with a 326 batting average in SEC play. Awesome job for him. Jake Brown, 324. And then Daniel Dickinson, 315 in conference play. So those 3 guys all went over 300 in conference play. And in 2022 and 2024, you only had 2 guys those years that went over 300 in conference play. So the only year where you had, besides this year, where you had 3 guys go over 300 was 2023. And that year you had, I think, Cruz hit 400, ridiculous. Tanks went over 300. Joe Bear hit 303. And then if you want to count it, Travinsky did hit 350, but he only had very limited at bats. But he did. So I guess you could say they had four people. But 2 of those years, you had 2 guys. In 2022, Jacob Berry hit 400, and then Cruz hit 3 something. And then in 2020, 4, yeah, you had 2 guys hit over 300, Tanks and Ashton Larson. So good job to get 3 guys over this year. Chris Stanfield, somebody I want to point out, 14 SEC doubles led the conference, and that is the most by a Tiger in the Jay Johnson era. The closest to that is Tommy White hit 12 doubles one of his years at LSU. 14 doubles from your 9-hole is wild, and that led the conference. So awesome job by Stanfield. Derek Curriell's 25 RBIs are the most RBIs by a freshman in the Jay Johnson era, so good for him. I will point out 2025 this is the first year that nobody reached double-digit SEC home runs. So, I mean, you look back in 2022, Dylan Cruz hit 16 home runs, and you had a couple of guys with 9. Joe Bear hit 9. You had, a couple of guys hit 9. 2023, believe it or not, you had one guy hit 10 home runs. That was it. 2024 last year, you had Tommy White hit 16 home runs. Bear Jones hit 9 home runs. Travinsky was up there somewhere close, but you had at least one guy hit double digit. You didn't have anybody reach that this year. So that was the first. And that, again, I think maybe that's something that was a little surprising. You maybe expected a little bit more power in conference play, although it has come around a little bit more. I think Jared Jones got up to, I want to say, was it 7 home runs now? In let me check real quick. In conference play, Jared Jones has, 7 home runs in conference play. So he made a little bit comeback. But now, on the mound, one thing I will say about this staff that's very different than other staffs, whether it was Jason Kelly's staff in 2022, Wes Johnson, in 2023, or Nate Yeskie last year, is that you had 81% of the innings came from just 5 arms this year. All right. And if you look at it, you had 5 guys that had 30-plus innings on this pitching staff. Cade Anderson, obviously, and Anthony Ianson, 61 for Anderson, 51 for Ianson. But then you had Chase Shores had 31 in 2/3. Kason Evans had 31 in 1/3. And then Zach Cowan had 30 in 2/3 innings pitched. So to have 5 guys with that many innings is kind of rare. Now, after that, you take a big jump down. The next set of guys have 9 innings in conference. And so, there's a couple ways of looking at that. But the 2024 team with Jump, Holman, and Herring was the only other year under Jay Johnson that LSU had 3 guys go over 30 innings. The other 2 years, you only had 2 guys go over 30 innings. This year, you had 5. So is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I think on a positive side, you know who your guys are. Those 5 guys you can ride with. You know who they are, and you feel very comfortable, obviously with your 2 starters. But then going to Shores, Evans, and Cowan, you feel comfortable. The good news is you do have some guys emerging now, whether it's Jaden Newt, Cooper Williams. The problem is they just don't have a lot of innings under their belt, and that's something in years past that some of these teams, I think with 2022 team, I mean, you just had 5 guys with 20-plus innings. There was just a lot of options there. But so again, on the positive, you know who your guys are. Negative is you have less guys that have been tested. That's what it was. I made a note. The 2022 staff had 10 guys with 14 innings or more. So, and all of Jay's other teams had 5 or 6 arms with 14 innings. So that was a really special bullpen back in 2022. Now, this is the best 1-2 punch in the Jay Johnson era. The Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson is the best 1-2, period. All right. Now, you might say, well, and I'll be honest, guys, like when I give you these stats, I'm not even going to include 2022 because, look, Mikal Hilliard was great for LSU, but that was the year Jay Johnson said we got to get professional pitchers on the staff. Hilliard started 10 games in conference, and then like Sam Dutton started 9, but I'm not even going to lump those in with the best 1-2 punches. But look, I know you had 2 first-rounders in 2023. You had Paul Skeens and Ty Floyd. Last year, you had 2 guys go in the competitive rounds. So those are 2 starters in the top 2 rounds with Gage Jump and Luke Holman. You have had 3 straight years with really good 1-2 punches. But this one, I think, is the best. Overall, not talking about conference, Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson went 16-3. That's nuts. That's nuts. In conference, they went 10-3. So listen to these stats. I kind of combined the last 3 years and just put like, hey, what's the best 1-2 punch and different, stats. So Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson, they combined for 118 2/3 innings. That is the most of the last 3 years. Skeens and Floyd gave you 112 2/3. Gage Jump and Luke Holman only went 108 1/3 innings. So this is the most durable as far as just innings pitched. Now, when you talk about hits allowed, Skeens and Floyd only allowed 85 hits, and right behind them was Jump Holman. That staff last year, I'm telling you, that was a sneaky good 1-2 punch. I love those 2 guys. But Jump Holman, they only allowed 89 hits, which is only 4 more than Skeens and Floyd. This year's 1-2, 102 hits. So they've given up some more hits. And then when you look at walks, they walked right about the same as Jump Holman. Skeens and Floyd, only walked 34 batters. So that was the fewest compared to 42 this year and then 43 last year. But where you see a big difference is the strikeouts. So Anderson and Ianson combined for 182 strikeouts over the conference season. That is 13.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. That is more than Skeens and Floyd, who had 13.7 strikeouts per 9 innings. So Anderson Ianson, 182 strikeouts. Skeens Floyd, 171. And then Jump and Holman, they were down a good bit. They were 130 strikeouts, which came out to 10.8 per 9 innings. So when you talk about ERA, this is the best ERA combined. Anderson Ianson combined 3.41 ERA. Skeens and Floyd, 3.75 ERA. Jump Holman, 4.24. All of these are good, great, for Friday and Saturday starters, you can't lose with any of these. But I'm just pointing out how good this one is. They went in conference. Anderson Ianson went 10-3 compared to 7-4 for Jump Holman, and then Skeens and Floyd were 10-1. So they didn't lose when those 2 guys pitched. So, but just an elite 1-2 punch. And I'm telling you, listen, that is what has me so confident going into the postseason. Having those 2 guys to start. I don't know that you're going to find me. The only team out there that I would say has a better rotation because they have 3 is North Carolina. They have 3 elite starters, okay? But I think still our 1-2 are better than their 1-2, okay? So I just don't know of a better 1-2 punch than LSU has this year. And again, going back to the guys you can go to with Chase Shores, Casey Evans, Zach Cowan out the bullpen. Now you got Jaden Newt right there, and whoever emerges down the stretch. That is a solid pitching staff, guys. I know I still hear people say that's the weakness of this team. I totally disagree. And I think we're going to see, that circle of trust shrinks in the postseason. So I did want to point this out because I think that he's, Zach Collins lately hasn't been great, but he's had a very good year. One of the best years of any reliever in the Jay Johnson era. Now, still to this day, Griffin Herring is going to take the cake. Griffin Herring, guys, last year, I mean, he made 11 appearances. He had a 1.14 ERA, 5 saves. So Zach Collins got 5 saves, 2.93 ERA. All right, in 14 appearances. But like the innings are very similar. Griffin Herring threw 31 and 2/3 innings. Zach Collins 30 and 2/3 innings. So Griffin Herring threw one more inning last year than Zach Collins has this year. Gave up. Hits are very similar. So Herring threw one more inning than Collins. Gave up 25 hits to Collins 28. The earned runs, Herring gave up half the earned runs. Walks. Herring gave up 7 based on balls. Collins gave up 8. Strikeouts. Griffin Herring, 45 strikeouts. Zach Collins, 34 strikeouts. So, like, Griffin Herring, man, like, that was elite. That I don't know you're going to see that again. I mean, a guy who comes in, he makes 11 conference appearances, 1.14 ERA, teams hit 217 against him. And in 31 and 2/3 innings, he strikes out 45 and walks 7. And look, Zach Collins was on that. He was right there. He's just lately, he's kind of given up some hits, some runs, things like that. But it's still been a very good year for Zach Collins. Now, let me stop by saying that, or end by talking about this. As far as LSU's chances going forward, every now and then you hear people go, they're not going to win it. They can't hit. They can't do that. They can't. And what I want to leave you with is like, well, then who is? Like, who's going to win it? Tell me who. Is it Arkansas, who lost like 4 out of their last 6 series? Is it a lot of people still talk about Tennessee as one of the most, like, if you look at the betting odds, it's like Arkansas and then I think Tennessee and then LSU. Tennessee lost like 6 out of the last 7 series. Who's going to beat Georgia? I don't trust Georgia at all. I mean, they're great at home, but like, I don't trust that starting rotation. I mean, I like Finley, I like Curley, and then they've got a lot of guys with stuff, but like, I don't know. I mean, they are a good team. I do like Vanderbilt, North Carolina, I like their pitching a lot. That's a sleeper team for me, North Carolina. I like that team a lot. But like, who is? That's what's great about this year is I don't see one team that I'm like, man, this team is gonna win it. All these teams are very even. I thought last year the College World Series, the 4 SEC, 4 ACC teams entering the World Series, I honestly thought you can make a case for every team winning the World Series. You might look at Florida and be like, well, I don't know about Florida, but look, man, Brandon Neely, Cags, they were a game away from making the finals last year. All right, it was very even. 2023 College World Series, I don't think Oral Roberts, TCU, Virginia really had much of a chance, but like those 4, like Wake Forest, LSU, Tennessee with that pitching staff, even Stanford, those 4 teams, Florida, my goodness, like with that rotation, those teams were elite. I don't think there's a team this year that could compete with, probably the top 4 teams in the 2023 College World Series. So what am I saying is that how could anybody say like, hey, LSU's not going to win it? They don't have a chance. They don't do this. They've got just as good of a chance of anybody. They're playing at home all the way throughout. They've got 2 stud starting pitchers. They've got probably 4 very dependable elite bullpen arms that are as good as anybody else. And they've got a lineup, guys, that's like 1 through 9, maybe you've got a couple of spots down at the bottom where you're not expecting, a whole lot, but you never know who it's going to be. It could be Hernandez running into a ball or Dickinson going 3 for 4. We know what Jones can do, what Curriell can do, Jake Brown, Stephen Milam at some point is going to get back to his normal self, So I really like where this team is. I like what this team has accomplished so far this year. And, the goal again, like I've mentioned, go to Hoover, stay healthy, give some guys some work, and Before we know it, it'll be postseason ball at the box, and this team's going to be ready to go. Now, that's going to do it for today. I will be back most likely either – I don't know if it'd be maybe before, once we find out our opponent. Maybe I'll do something Thursday before the first round, or I might even just wait till after the conference tournament and do something going into Selection Sunday. And then listen, once we know the regional, I'm telling you, there will not be more extensive coverage than this podcast right here. I live this stuff. I breathe this stuff. I do have a life, but I'm an entrepreneur, and I do have been blessed to have a lot of time, and this is one of my main interests. So that's going to be exciting. So hopefully you guys are, keep listening and as we get into the postseason. But as always, I really do appreciate everyone for taking the time to listen, and we'll be right back with some another episode later this week. So y'all enjoy Hoover and go Tigers.